SpongeBob? What do you want?
Well, it's just that it's Tuesday again, sir, and I was wondering if I could have my weekly performance review.
I have a question. I share my sketchbook on here all the time, and that's pretty much the only thing that you guys really follow me for, and I don't mind. I enjoy sharing my sketchbooks. That's kind of the main thing that I do here. But when I got this TikTok, I got it right when I started this one, and so I barely show my other ones. And up on YouTube, I have flip-throughs of pretty much all of the sketchbooks that I've made that are around this size, because that's kind of when I started doing that for my website way back when. And I was wondering, do you guys want to see the other ones? Are you interested in seeing the other ones? Because I will admit them, they're not as great, they're not as good, as you can tell from like the thickness. They're not as impressive, but I have them. And so would you be willing to see it? Would you want to see them? I'm gonna try to keep this video under a minute. So basically, I asked you guys a few days ago if you guys wanted to see my old sketchbooks, and it only got like 400 views, but everybody that commented gave me a resounding yes. And now I have to figure out how I'm actually supposed to show it to you guys, because I realized while I was organizing all of my stuff that I actually have a lot of sketchbooks. These are all super old. I think they date back to 2012, because those are the ones that managed to survive life in Puerto Rico in general. And you know, they're not really chronological, because I was using them all at once, because it wasn't until I got these little guys here that I started to really work in one sketchbook all at once. And it's a lot of stuff to go through. So I'm thinking of making a YouTube video where I just explain the ones in here, and then on TikTok I can show you guys all of these that I have, except for the one that's in storage, so like, and then I can show you guys my thumbnail sketchbook too. It's a lot.
Yeah, so this video is going to be a little different, I guess, mainly because I am preparing myself to be embarrassed by old art content.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed? This is really embarrassing.
But also because I don't actually have all of my old sketchbooks. I have one of these bad boys, which is my first one, like I said before, locked away in storage. I'm gonna get it eventually this year, actually, but as of now, filming this, I don't have it. And also, I know that I have way more art content that's old stored away, but I actually used to paint way more, and I had a bunch of scrap paper folders that I legitimately can't find, and I think is at my grandma's house. So there's definitely bits and pieces of history missing, but I have enough to make somewhat of a coherent video from start to finish.
Where the hell are they? The appropriate question is, where in the hell are they?
Like I said, none of these are in chronological order because I kind of hopped from one sketchbook to the other one without finishing any of them. I did realize, though, that most of them start 2012, but I don't date most of my pages. This sketchbook is a really good example of the fact that I really was not using these as often as possible, so there are some drastic changes from one year to the next. I'd like to think 2012 was a special year for me because most of these are dated exactly at 2012, and it's when I started using markers. Of course, at the time, I was using Sharpie markers, but, you know, something was coming. And I pretty much always used to draw, but this is like the first year, I think, where I really just started having and hoarding sketchbooks. Obviously, I didn't really keep one until, I want to say, 2017. That's when I really started to focus on it. But for the most part, these are just a series of embarrassing doodles in several notebooks. And of course, the gut reaction while going through these sketchbooks is like, I guess, a little bit of embarrassment at some of these drawings. But at the same time, like, I can see a trajectory. I can see getting better. And so I'm not necessarily that upset about it. I just know that a lot of these had potential and I could have fixed them. And I know also that a lot of these are things that I would never draw again. I'm also starting to notice that 2012 was kind of a year of me trying to figure out what my style even was. So a lot of these are like really anime inspired or like semi-realistic. I didn't know where I was going with it, and I didn't know what mediums I liked using either. So there's like coloring pencil, Sharpie markers, graphite pencils, random pens, random paint. I tried to do watercolor for a little bit until I realized that I hated it. There's also a lot of fan art going on, or just straight up copying things or tracing things to try to figure out how structure works, and I'm glad that I did that because eventually I was able to draw sort of recognizable people. But overall, I think the thing that's changed the most is that I definitely use literally every inch of paper now because all of this white space was trying to hurt my eyes. Like, I would really doodle one little thing on the page, hate it, and just move on and leave it there. And this is where things get a little interesting because I had found this sketchbook again like 3 or 4 years ago, and I started to draw in it again, and you can see a drastic change between like 2012, 2013 art to now. And a lot of those little witch characters that you can see there pop up in other art that I've done for like Halloween, and I do plan on either using some of these characters for like a book illustration thing or for postcards. These are specifically little thumbnail sketches for an illustration I did for a zine that I was in, I think 3 Halloweens ago. I turned that little pumpkin family into a postcard that I definitely want to redo because I think the sketch looks better than the completed one that I did. And then pretty much all of these pages until the end are from an Inktober that I did where I was actually following the original list. I don't really do that anymore, but this was the one that I actually used the entire list, all 31 prompts of, and I'm still really proud of the fact that I actually finished it. I ended up drawing them on this sketchbook because I had a lot of white pages left over, and I would pull them out and use a light box to actually ink them, so I left the original ones in here. And as I go through this, it's really interesting to see what I've used again because one of the characters that I created for this Inktober ended up being one of my characters for my Mythological May series, which I have a zine of. Just really fun to sort of see like a recurring cast of characters. Then there are also more thumbnail sketches for my next Inktober series, which was like Historictober, and a few doodles from my Mythological May series before I ended up focusing on one thumbnail sketchbook. So this was kind of like the rough drafts version, and that was like the original idea version. I want to keep them into one sketchbook though after this because there's still plenty of pages left over. And yeah, that's kind of it for this one. I don't know what else to do with a lot of these pages. I'm thinking of either just to keep drawing in them as like a thumbnail thing or to take the white space out and just use them for like journaling. I don't know yet because I definitely want to make use of the space. And then these were all thumbnails for a bakery logo that I had to make. Yeah, sketchbook number 1, I'm going to claim as the miscellaneous sketchbook. And sketchbook number 2 begins also in the year 2012. So I think around 2012 is when I started to realize that I like to organize my sketchbooks. And so I had this whole sketchbook that was originally supposed to just be mythology things and me trying to figure out a style because I had a quote-unquote semi-realistic style at the time, and then I was trying to see if I can do more cartoony things. I didn't really have the basis for either yet, but it's interesting to see what I was trying to do character design wise, because if I look at the art that I make now, these are characters that I would never draw anymore. I think I've gotten much better since, and also it had a lot of random scrap paper that I would do on other pages and then glue them down. I now just noticed that that girl's hands were reversed, and now I'm upset. So yeah, that was the beginning of an era of, I guess, collaging. If you pay attention to these drawings though, I'm really excited about it because I redid that little rainbow hair thing in 2014, and there's like a big improvement there, so I'm thinking of doing that again also. I'd also like to point out that in 2013, I think, is when I got a tablet, which is when I did those little animated doodles, and I didn't like it, and so I stopped using it, much to my guilt. And it wasn't until I understood more digital art that I started using tablet again, so I'm really excited about how that's come full circle. And I'd like to say that you can tell that I was slowly getting better at anatomy. However, I do think that I was struggling with drawing the same face over and over. And here we go, the 2014 version. I'm really excited with it, and I kind of want to redo it, even though it's not something that's usually my style anymore, because I want to see how much different it would look in 2022. And just like what happened with the last one, I found it like 4 years ago again, and I started drawing in it again because I felt bad about the white space. So you can see a definite change in how I draw. Like, look at that body versus something that I would have drawn in 2012. So I'm kind of excited about the difference. From that Persephone doodle alone, you can already tell that I was getting tired of drawing white people. There's a definite change, I guess, in who I was drawing for and what my target audience was going to be in my brain. Here are some random anatomy drawings that I ended up putting a bra on because I felt guilty for some reason. You can tell I was still in high school because why on earth was I taking classes in this sketchbook? And then once again, white space that I don't know what to do with. And then I ended up taking it with me when I went to Lacoste, and that's what those two drawings are from. And then this is a self-portrait collage that I made that I just stuck in there because I didn't know what else to do with it. Ah yes, the tiny 2012 sketchbook. I think this one's the one that made me realize that I like smaller sketchbooks, and I was trying to do a series because I was trying to challenge myself to actually complete series, because that was something that I did not know how to do. I would give up after like 2, and honestly I think this is what gave me my work ethic. I don't think I ever actually finished a series before this, unless you count doodling all the Disney princess on a scrap paper or like the table at Macaroni Grill. I was also desperately trying to teach myself how to draw a realistic face and how to do skin, and you can tell. I will say, however, that I remember drawing all of these, and that's also when I got a Pinterest, so I would at least have a series of references to work off of, and I do think that that helped me. So don't ever listen to people that tell you not to have references, because that's the only reason I learned. I was also still struggling to find out what kind of subject matter I even liked to draw, and this is my watercolor phase because I saw an artist draw like this on DeviantArt, and I struggled so much because to this day I still hate watercolor. I will say, however, I did like color, and that hasn't changed. My guilt over not using art supplies, though, has also not changed, because the only reason I was even working in watercolor in the sketchbook is because I got it as a present, and I felt the need to make the best out of it, but it was not working. I also could not, and still can't, draw anime. This sketchbook can at best be described as me in 2012 to 2013, genuinely just struggling to understand what kind of art I was even good at, because I knew I had potential. I just didn't know what the heck I was doing. Thankfully, I had already decided by age 11 that I was going to be an artist for the rest of my life, and I thank myself for having such unbridled confidence that I no longer have, because looking back on it, I remember drawing every single one of these and going, yeah, this is good, this is fantastic, this is amazing. And a bunch of these are just me tracing like an image that I saw on the internet because I was told that that was a good way to understand the anatomy of the face, and I guess it worked. I was gifted one of those giant Costco packs of Sharpie, and that's how I ended up doing this. And just like all the other ones, I never finished this sketchbook either. I have 2 other sketchbooks that I can also show you that started in 2012, but those have so much content that I've decided to save them for individual videos. I sadly also have my first finished sketchbook, which is what these images are from, in storage, and my other 3 sketchbooks I've already done a flip through of, so we can just skip ahead. I genuinely think that that first sketchbook is the one that helped me the most, and I do have a flip through of it here on YouTube, and it's actually the first video that I ever filmed to post. And I think finally forcing myself to finish these sketchbooks are what helped me out as an artist, because I've improved so much since, and you can definitely see that if you check out the videos of my last 3 sketchbooks as flip-through videos. And finally, the last sketchbook that I have is this little mini sketchbook that I only ended up using for the month of October 2020. I decided to share this one because even though I have shared the art from Historictober in the other sketchbook that I showed you, as well as on Instagram and the short of my finished doodles from that month, there were a lot of pieces of art that I didn't share, or at least I didn't show you guys the process of. I essentially challenged myself in this entire sketchbook to finish every single page in 1 month, which I would never do again, I don't think, but it was really fun. And I ended up using pen and ink and I think watercolor again, but only for the backgrounds, because if not, I would have gone insane. I'm really happy with each individual character that I made because it helped me research historical costuming, which is something that I'm really interested in right now. And I took all of my favorite ones and I made them into digital drawings that I'm still really happy about today and might turn into stickers someday, who knows. The reason I do share this one after I mentioned my last finished sketchbooks is because I kind of did them in between sketchbooks. So I figured I'd show you guys the ones that you're more familiar with and then post this one. The paper in this sketchbook was actually really thick, and it's like the perfect size, so I was able to carry it around with me. And I drew front to back on all of these pages, so I was able to draw not just the 31 drawings for Inktober/Historictober, but also I had some extra doodles left over for some characters. I used the last few pages for just either doodling random people that I saw on the street or doodling random ideas for characters that I had for stories of my own. This one's from a story that I want to write eventually. These are some practice sketches, and I also have little doodles of girls like this one because I had an idea for the craft, but if it was Afro-Latinas in the craft, and I still want that to be made. You can see the other ones when I flip back. I also watched Phantom of the Paradise, and I wanted to redesign characters from Phantom of the Opera, but like as disco people instead. And so I have this little doodle of a disco diva that is Christine that I want to actually take advantage of someday in the future, but until then she's just in here. And that completes that one. So not counting the thumbnail sketchbook or the fairy tale sketchbook that I do plan on sharing in a separate video with you guys.
It is so bad, I want to give you a 0, but that's not possible. So I give you a 1.
And just to reiterate something that I had said before, I have another sketchbook that I have not shared yet that I think needs its own video because I have plans for it. Now, I shared one image from it, and also, as you can see, it's coming apart at the seams, but I definitely think that what I was doing in this sketchbook reflected itself in, like, my later work in some way, and so I thought it needed its own video because I have an idea of what to do with it that I haven't done yet, and I hope that I can do in 2022. Sort of an art challenge for myself, if you will. It's also unfinished, so just like the other ones, there's a lot leaving to be desired, but I have something to work with, so I'm gonna save that for content for something else. So if you follow me on TikTok, I'm probably gonna share it mostly there, and then maybe make a video about all of the stuff later. I'd also like to apologize if I'm repeating myself too often in this video. I tend to film these voiceovers off the cuff, like while I edit the video, and so I don't really have a script because I want to talk about things in the moment, and so I might use some filler words a lot of the time, and also mainly because this is kind of like a last minute video attempt, because while I had promised to film this video like 2 months ago, I lost the footage of it right before Christmas, and so that's why I posted that last little doodle time-lapse video instead, because I wanted to upload something for Christmas, but I just didn't have the time to do that. I had to reshoot filming my sketchbook flip-throughs, so sometimes some of the audio just doesn't match up, but I hope that this was coherent enough. I'm pretty much done with my review. I have all of those sketchbooks in like a really big bag, and this is the last sketchbook that I've worked on, and I can't wait to start a new sketchbook next year. But until then, that is the end of my little mini review for myself.